8-year-old triplets didn't know they had a father until they met him at their mother's grave. The rain fell in steady sheets across Willow Creek Cemetery as three small figures huddled together, their matching black umbrellas creating a protective shield around them. 8-year-old Emma held her brother's hands tightly, Lucas on her left, Mason on her right, as they stood before a fresh headstone that read Sarah Mitchell, beloved mother. What they didn't know was that just 20 feet away, hidden behind an ancient oak tree, a man watched them with tears streaming down his face, a man who had searched for them for 8 long years, a man they had no idea existed. Before we continue with this incredible true story, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to Trillionaire in Love for more heartwarming stories that will touch your soul. Your support means everything to us, and now, let's dive into this emotional journey. The triplets had lived their entire lives believing they were orphans. Their mother Sarah had raised them alone until cancer claimed her life just 3 weeks earlier. Now, under the care of their elderly neighbor Mrs. Patterson, they visited their mother's grave every Sunday, bringing fresh flowers and sharing stories about their week at school. Emma, the natural leader among the three, always carried the conversations. "Mama, Lucas got an A on his math test," she whispered to the headstone, her voice barely audible over the rain, "and Mason drew you a picture, but Mrs. Patterson said we shouldn't leave it here because it might get ruined." Lucas squeezed his sister's hand, fighting back tears, while Mason clutched a crumpled drawing of their family, 3 stick figures under a rainbow, with one figure that had wings. What the children didn't know was that their mother had kept a devastating secret. 8 years ago, Sarah had fled from an abusive relationship, pregnant and terrified. The man she had loved, their father, David Chen, had struggled with anger and alcohol. In her final act of protection, she had disappeared without a trace, leaving no forwarding address, changing her name from Sarah Chen to Sarah Mitchell, determined to keep her unborn children safe from what she perceived as danger. But David had changed. The moment Sarah vanished, taking with her the news that she was carrying his children, he hit rock bottom. The wake-up call shattered him completely. He checked into rehabilitation, attended anger management classes, and spent months in therapy. He quit drinking, found steady work as a carpenter, and most importantly, he never stopped searching for the woman he loved and the children he had never met. For 8 years, David hired private investigators, posted on missing person websites, and drove through countless towns calling Sarah's name. He had transformed from the broken, angry man Sarah had fled from into someone worthy of being a father. But it seemed he would never get that chance. The breakthrough came through tragedy. When Sarah's obituary appeared in the local newspaper, David's latest private investigator spotted it immediately. The woman in the photo was unmistakably Sarah, though she had aged and her hair was different. But it was the mention of survived by her triplet children, Emma, Lucas, and Mason Mitchell, that stopped David's heart. He had children, 3 beautiful children who were now alone in the world. David spent days researching, learning everything he could about his children from a distance. He discovered they were living temporarily with Mrs. Patterson, that they were bright students, that Emma played violin while Lucas excelled at mathematics, and Mason showed artistic talent. He watched them from afar, afraid to approach, terrified that his sudden appearance would traumatize them further. That rainy Sunday, David had followed them to the cemetery, planning to finally introduce himself. But as he watched them mourn their mother, his courage failed him. How could he explain to 3 grieving children that their father, whom they believed didn't exist, had been searching for them their entire lives? As the triplets prepared to leave, Mason's drawing slipped from his small fingers and was caught by the wind. The colorful paper danced through the rain, landing directly at David's feet behind the oak tree. Without thinking, David stepped forward to retrieve it, and suddenly 3 pairs of eyes identical to his own were staring at him. "That's mine," Mason said softly, his voice trembling. David knelt down, his hands shaking as he held out the drawing. Up close, he could see Sarah's features in Emma's determined chin, his own dark eyes reflected in Lucas's serious gaze, and his mother's gentle smile in Mason's artistic expression. "It's beautiful," David whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Is this your family?" Emma stepped protectively in front of her brothers. "Who are you? Why were you hiding?" The moment of truth had arrived. David looked at these three precious souls, his children, and made a decision that would change all their lives forever. "My name is David," he said gently, still kneeling to their level, "and I have something very important to tell you about your mother and about me." The conversation that followed was the most difficult and most important of David's life. Sitting on a bench in the cemetery, with his children wrapped in his jacket to stay warm, he told them the truth. He explained that their mother had been scared and had left to protect them. He told them about his mistakes, his journey to become better, and his 8-year search to find them. "So you're our daddy?" Mason asked, his eyes wide with wonder and confusion. "Yes," David said, tears flowing freely. "And I know this is scary and confusing, but I want you to know that I love you. I've loved you since before you were born, and I've been looking for you every single day." Emma, ever the skeptic, had the hardest time accepting this revelation. "If you're really our daddy, why didn't Mama tell us about you? Why did she say our daddy was gone?" David took a shaky breath. "Because your Mama was protecting you from who I used to be. I wasn't a good man back then, Emma. I was angry and I made terrible choices. Your mother was right to take you away from me. But you're different now," Lucas asked quietly, his analytical mind processing the information. "I am," David promised. "It took losing you and your mother to make me realize I needed to change everything about myself. I got help, and I became the man I should have always been, the father you deserve." The challenges that followed were immense. Mrs. Patterson, protective of the children she had grown to love, was initially suspicious of David's sudden appearance. Social services became involved, requiring DNA tests, background checks, and psychological evaluations. The children struggled with conflicting emotions: grief for their mother, confusion about their father's sudden presence, and fear about what their future would hold. Emma, in particular, resisted David's attempts to connect. She had been her brother's protector for 3 weeks, and she wasn't ready to trust this stranger who claimed to be their father. She tested him constantly, challenging his patience and resolve. "Mama never mentioned you," she said defiantly during one of his supervised visits. "Maybe she didn't want you to find us." David's heart broke a little more each time, but he never gave up. He showed up consistently, bringing small gifts that showed he was paying attention to their interests: art supplies for Mason, math puzzles for Lucas, and sheet music for Emma's violin. He attended their school events, helped with homework during his allowed visits, and most importantly, he listened when they talked about their mother. The breakthrough came 6 weeks after their first meeting. Emma had been struggling with a difficult violin piece for a school concert, growing increasingly frustrated during practice. David, who had learned to play guitar during his rehabilitation as a form of therapy, offered to help. "I don't know much about violin," he said carefully, "but maybe we could work on the rhythm together." For the first time, Emma looked at him with something other than suspicion. As they worked through the piece together, David sharing stories about how music had helped him through his darkest days, Emma began to see glimpses of the father he could be. "You're really trying, aren't you?" she said quietly, after they had successfully played through the entire piece. "I'm trying to be the father you deserve," David replied. "I know I can't change the past, but I want to be here for your future if you'll let me." The legal process was lengthy but ultimately successful. DNA tests confirmed what David already knew, and the thorough background checks revealed his complete transformation. The judge, moved by the family's story and impressed by David's dedication to change, awarded him custody of his children. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom, it was in the small moments that followed. Lucas's first genuine smile when David helped him build a model airplane. Mason's excitement when David hung his artwork all over their new home's refrigerator. And most importantly, the day Emma finally called him Dad instead of David. Moving into their new life together wasn't without challenges. The children still grieved for their mother. and David struggled with guilt over the lost years. They attended family therapy together, learning to communicate and heal as a unit. David had to learn parenting skills on the fly, while the children had to learn to trust again. There were difficult nights when one of them would wake up crying for their mother, and David would sit with them, acknowledging their pain while providing comfort. He never tried to replace Sarah's memory. Instead, he honored it, keeping photos of her throughout their home and encouraging the children to share their favorite memories of her. The most challenging moment came on the first anniversary of Sarah's death. The children wanted to visit her grave, but Emma was afraid that David would be hurt by their need to mourn their mother. "It's okay to love and miss Mama," David assured them. "She was an incredible woman who raised 3 amazing children. I'm grateful to her for protecting you and for loving you so well." Together, they visited Sarah's grave, bringing fresh flowers and sharing updates about their new life. David spoke to Sarah's headstone too, thanking her for the gift of their children and promising to love and protect them always. As months turned into years, the family found their rhythm. David coached Lucas's little league team, attended every one of Emma's violin recitals, and turned their garage into an art studio for Mason. The house filled with laughter, music, and the beautiful chaos of family life. The children began to understand that families come in many forms, and that sometimes the most beautiful stories emerge from the most difficult circumstances. They learned that people can change, that love can heal even the deepest wounds, and that sometimes what seems like an ending is actually a beginning. On their 9th birthday, the triplets surprised David with a gift, a drawing that Mason had created with help from his siblings. It showed 4 stick figures under a rainbow, with one figure watching from the clouds above. At the bottom, in Emma's careful handwriting, it read, "Our family with Mama watching over us and Daddy taking care of us." David framed that drawing and hung it in the place of honor in their living room, right next to the original picture Mason had dropped at the cemetery that rainy day when their lives changed forever. The family's story didn't end with their reunion, it began there. David often reflected on how Sarah's decision to leave, though painful, had ultimately saved not just their children, but him as well. Her absence had forced him to confront his demons and become the man he was meant to be. In protecting their children from who he was, she had given him the chance to become who he could be. Today, as teenagers, Emma, Lucas, and Mason are thriving. Emma leads the school orchestra and dreams of becoming a music teacher. Lucas is captain of the math team and plans to study engineering. Mason's artwork has been featured in local exhibitions, and he wants to become a professional artist. Most importantly, they are confident, compassionate young people who understand that families are built on love, commitment, and the courage to change. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that it's never too late for redemption, that children are more resilient than we often believe, and that love truly can conquer the deepest pain. Sometimes the most profound meetings happen in the most unexpected places, and sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the greatest sorrows. The man who once hid behind an oak tree in shame and fear is now the father who never misses a school play, who teaches his children that mistakes don't define us, but how we choose to grow from them does. The children who once believed they had no father now know they have a dad who moved heaven and earth to find them, and who continues to work every day to deserve their love. In the end, Sarah's greatest act of love wasn't taking her children away from their father. It was creating the circumstances that would eventually bring them together when the time was right, when David had become the father they needed him to be. This incredible true story reminds us that families are built on love, commitment, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs hope today, and don't forget to subscribe to Trillionaire in Love for more inspiring stories that celebrate the power of love and redemption. Your engagement helps us reach more people with these important messages of hope and healing. The triplets still visit their mother's grave every year on the anniversary of her death. but now they go as a complete family, a father and his children, honoring the woman who made their reunion possible through her sacrifice and love. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, they swear they can hear her whispering that she's proud of them all. This is the story of how 3 children found their father at their mother's grave, and how a father's love and determination turned 8 years of searching into a lifetime of family. It's a testament to the truth that love never gives up, that people can change, and that sometimes our greatest sorrows lead us to our greatest joys.